The Black Professional Network and Women in Housing Network are hosting the Black Women in Housing panel to further discuss transitioning to and navigating mid-level or senior leadership as a Black woman in residence life. And so I am going to turn it over to our moderator, Dr. Aja Holmes, who's going to further introduce herself and explain her role and assist with introducing our panel members. Dr. Holmes.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here with you all. As she said, my name is Aja Holmes, and I am the Assistant Dean of Students and Director of Community Living here at the University of San Francisco, hailing to you from the great state, the Golden State of California. And so I'm excited here with us. We have about 6 awesome folks who are going to talk to us a little bit about their journey. We have some questions answered as well as we know may lead us and direct us in other areas too. And so I'm going to watch the chat as best as I can with these 45-year-old eyes, trying my best to make sure that we have what we need in the chat area too as well. And I know that we're going to have some announcements and things of that nature towards the end. So please do stick around so you can figure out what's next coming up with these 2 awesome organizations, so that way you can be in the know of what's happening. So I know people got to dip in things, but you want to be in the know of what's happening, what's next there. So we are going to go ahead and have our folks introduce themselves. They know the order they're going in, but I am going to go ahead and have this just say the names so that we know what's happening with there. We're going to start off with Paige Hicks, who's going to do an introduction of themselves, kind of talk about their years in housing and a quick story about how you ended up in housing, okay? Because we want to make sure we get to the meat and potatoes of what we are here today. So Paige, take us away.
For sure. Good morning or afternoon or evening, wherever you are from. My name is Paige Hicks. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I serve as the Director of Residence Life at the University of Chicago. And so to share a little bit about me and my story, I started off as a coordinator at the University of South Florida, Tampa, where I was able to do a lot of great work, opened up a P3, I worked with our Greek housing on campus, and even oversaw a lot around residential engagement and curriculum there as well. Served as an assistant director, and then decided to go back home to the great state of Texas, where I was an assistant director at the University of Texas at Austin. And so just recently moved to the Chicago area. And so now I'm in Chicago. It's been a month. I'm enjoying it. It's a little cold, y'all, but that's a little bit about me, because I'm ready to connect and engage with the other panelists on this call today.
All right, fantastic. Get your little scarf. All right, and we have Dr. Mika Kakari. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Dr. Holmes. So again, my name is Mika Kakari. My pronouns are she, her, and I currently serve as the Associate Director of Residence Life at the University of Cincinnati. And I've been in this role for about 2 years, but been in housing, since I was an RA. I mean, that really is what got me in housing. I was an RA in undergrad, and then I've worked as a hall director and an associate director at a different institution, and did a couple stints in other functional areas. I found my way back to Res Life a few years back. So excited to be here with the panelists and look forward to hearing from others.
All right, fantastic. And we have Nicole Natumba.
Hi, everyone. Happy Wednesday. My name is Nicole Natumba. I use she, her pronouns. I am the Assistant Director in the Office of Residential Education at Wagner College in Staten Island, New York. I actually was not an RA during undergrad. I did a lot of student activities and involvement. So my intro into housing was actually through an ACUOI internship as I finished grad school. I've been here at Wagner since 2019. I came in as an area coordinator and have been in the assistant director role for about 2 years now. It's an honor to be back on this panel, and I look forward to our conversation today.
Fantastic. I know where Wagner is. I've been there with my time in New York. All right, we have Dr. Dominique Simmons.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Dominique Simmons, and so currently I am the District Director of Housing for Residence Life at Hines Community College. I've only been here a month, so I'm coming up on my first month here. Super excited to be in the role. I've been in housing a little bit over 10 years. I started as an RA at my undergrad at Jackson State University. So I started with HBCUs and kind of like moved around a little bit. I was a hall director for years, assistant director for a few years at Mississippi State. And so I did dip into a lot of other things like Greek life, admissions, and all the things, but I really do love housing and super excited to be here with you all. And I'm ready to start talking and connecting with other panelists as well.
All right, thank you. We know housing's where it's at. All right, and we have Kiana Stone.
Hello, greetings everyone. Happy Wednesday. My name is Kiana Stone. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I currently serve as the Director for Auxiliary Services and University Housing at Governor State University, located just right outside the Chicago area. In the Southland, as my president says, with the jewel of the Southland here in University Park. A little bit about my journey. Postmasters, I'm legal now. I've turned 18 years now within housing. First gen college student. So did my undergrad and grad at Indiana University, and the seed was planted by another student affairs professional. I went through those 5 phases of denial before we get to acceptance of this is the journey. But coming to that understanding that that's where my passion lied within housing and residence life, because you get to moonlight in a lot of other spaces to be able to be transformational. And that was part of what drew me to housing, because we get to transform lives in a very unconventional way that has lasting effects on beyond just building them up or what they come to believe why they came to college to do, to get a degree, to get a job, but to really become an adult. And so we helped them with the class they didn't know they signed up for. And that has kind of kept me going.
All right, thank you so much. All right, and Shanice Williams.
Hello, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shanice Williams. I'm the Assistant Director of Housing and Residence Life at the University of Texas at Tyler, which is in East Texas, so about an hour and a half outside of Dallas. I have been in Housing and Residence Life a little bit over 6 years, and I came up the traditional route. So I was an RA, I was an assistant hall director, and then I became a residence coordinator, the equivalent to a hall director, and now I'm here as an assistant director. So I'm super happy to be here in community with everyone and just get to talk and discuss some of these really great topics. So thank you all.
Thank you so much to our awesome panelists. We are excited to have you with us today. Listen to those journeys, listen to those ways and how folks kind of got here to this particular part. I appreciate the traditional route. I appreciate the denial and all the stages folks have gone through. And I know that this is my 22nd year as well. I too was not an RA, so it's also very exciting. And so I see that there, we're going to go ahead and put the questions into the chat. And so I have some awesome assistants who are going to be doing that there. I was getting ready to change the order, but I saw on our document you already highlighted it, so I figured Control C was already hit. So we're going to start off with that, and we're going to take a big chunk out of this here. So higher education systems can be complex and require the ability to navigate campus politics. We're going to talk about it today, y'all. What are some of the lessons or the things that have been helpful through your journey in navigating different institutional politics? And then I also have here, I would say rephrase it, how have you survived, some of these unwritten expectations, right? I know that's like enough, but it's me trying to put a little spin on these questions. And so we can start anywhere. Somebody who wants to go ahead and get it started on that. Do you want me to call on you? You good? Somebody got it ready? Y'all, this here. How can you survive some of these unwritten expectations? This politics that you can't run from. I'm going to go ahead and have Kiana go ahead and give us a start off.
I know you gonna call on me, but we ready. You stay ready, you don't have to get ready. So thinking about that, and that has been very key as I am a newly minted director, moving into that space. And it's quickly understanding the landscape, knowing who the players are. I'm a good people watcher, so it works well in the job. Having those initial conversations, identifying where my leadership lied, who are their allies, understanding that, who are their frenemies, if you will, because everyone at work has them, you know, who they play nice with and who they don't. And so understanding what game you're walking into, I think is key in terms of navigating those politics, because there are some folks that they may get on your last, but you need them in the pocket. And so being able to understand that, for example, you know, university police, I love them. God knows I do, but sometimes, but you know, but I got to maintain that relationship because I'm going to need them before they need me. And that's not a bridge to burn. So it's understanding that, you know, that because sometimes the situations can really get you going and you might have a few choice words and you have to figure out when to hold back or who to send, because it may not be you that needs to entertain and have that conversation to get what you need to get done, or the boulders that are in your way out of the way. So understanding who can you send, and you know, to be able to do the work on behalf of your department.
Thank you so much. Shanice, bring it in some.
Yeah, so I was thinking one, you know, we talked about denial. So sometimes I always have to tell myself and sit back, like, you know, it's cool when they do it, but when I do it, it's a problem, it's an issue, right? So like there are times where I have to literally sit there and just be like, it's a problem that I do this, right? It was because it was coming from me, right? But I think one of the biggest things that I kind of survive is through community. So like these. I was reading a lot of articles, and specifically when it came to Black women, we tend to kind of have this kinship with each other because there's so little of us at a lot of institutions. We tend to navigate towards each other. So just finding those key players of other Black women that I am like, and just being in community with them, whether that is another faculty member, whether that is another Black woman in another department, that I can say, hey, how are you functioning in this? Maybe you might have a bit of information that I don't, that can like help me navigate through this. So really just being in community and using my key players with other Black women.
Thank you. There was some nuggets there. All right, Nicole.
I want to touch back on a lot of what Kiana said. Like, I also am very much, let me observe what's happening around me before I offer my 2 cents, before I put any insight into the conversation, because those key partnerships are very important to maintain. So it may also be like that one time that they do something and you're like, I don't know if I trust it. But then that other time they do something that you're like, okay, maybe they are trying to help me out. Let me tread these waters lightly. That's something I've definitely come to learn a lot more about, not just from my own observation, but I've seen it. We've had a lot of transition on our campus in the last couple of years. So I've seen my boss do it. I've seen some other like counterparts do it. So I'm also kind of picking up on, okay, here's how my mind operates, but let me watch how these other people work and then figure out what I need to do when it's my turn.
Yes, that's good. Mika.
The only thing I'd add that the panelists haven't said yet is just remembering that it's the long game. Like, and so sometimes I think that like everything isn't just, you know, everything can't be a here and now. It's like, if I'm, you know, I always sometimes joke with our staff, like, I'm gonna like be here longer than you. And so I can't make a decision, a snap decision like that, because I'm thinking about the long game and being here longer than a year or two at the level that I'm at. And so I think sometimes with politics, like, you just got to remember that everything isn't the short game, that I'm playing the long game. And sometimes you just got to outlast some people.
Yeah, sorry about that, Dr. Gakari. I was trying to make sure I get everybody in. Yes, all right. Dr. Dominique and Paige will have you wrap us up.
Yeah, I think everybody really kind of touched on it a lot, because for me, I just started a new position as the director for housing at Hines, and it has been different because I have to learn new politics, and I knew Mississippi State politics for 5 years, or really longer than 5 years. So really, like y'all said, just know who the players are. I asked my supervisor, and I'm so transparent. Sometimes I ask my supervisor, I said, look, be honest with me. How far can I go? You know, because you don't want to, you know, I don't want to, you know, step on any toes. I don't want to do that coming in, because like you said, I'm here for a long time and I'm trying to figure out how to navigate, especially with facilities and, you know, police and different things like that. And, you know, when you come in as a new director, everybody wants you to change everything, but it ain't gonna happen like that. And so I pick my battles that I wanna, you got to pick your battles. And I tell people real quick, that's not the battle I want to die on today, because they can come later. And so for me, I just make sure that I'm doing that. I'm meeting everybody. I'm talking to people. I might not call you when it's an issue. I'm calling you to say, hey, I'm Dr. Dominic Simmons, new here. Good to meet you. So I can start filling out people. And so that's typically what I do. But it is different. You have to know how to play it. But learn who the people are. That's the biggest thing for me.
Come on, Dr. Simmons, you just poured into my cup. And so I too am new in my position. And so I'll just echo some of the same things that people have shared. That coalition piece, that coalition building has been really helpful for me during this time, and watching and understanding, right? I hear what's being said, but I also know there are other things that's not being said in this spaces. And there have been times where it's like, I can't hold that. Or for you, that may be a mountain, but for me, that's a molehill. And so I got to figure out where am I going to dedicate my energy, my time, and my effort, because I am going to be here for a long time. So what does that mean for me? And so I'll echo everything that my counterparts have shared in this space for sure.
Absolutely. And I think we got some really good gems there. And there's some things that I've also too, as I also navigate. This is not necessarily my first position. This is my fourth or fifth position. And I'm still I'm trying to navigate some of these things and had to lean on and make some phone calls. And, and Kiana was one of the phone calls, to talk about how do I navigate this, because that's that kinship, that support system, that network. All right. And so we're going to go ahead and get into that. And we're going to talk a little bit about, we talked about being a Black woman. And I think Shanice talked about, I did it, so it's different. And so what does that mean? And so how does that identity show up as well? And looking at, as a Black woman, how does the intersectionality impact the role, and how do you navigate that in the workplace? And so I think we're experiencing this on a national level, right? In terms of what's happening with the politics. It seems like a certain president has gotten away with everything underneath the sun, and trying to hold them accountable to that. And we know if someone else did it, it would have been a different story. And so how does that intersectionality as a Black woman impact the role, and how do we navigate that in the workplace? And I'm going to have Dr. Kakari start us off.
Yeah, I just think that like every space we walk in, people see our Blackness. They see that I'm a Black woman. Before I open my mouth, before I say anything, people, have an idea of what that is. And so I feel like how it's impacted my work is I have to think twice about everything I say, how I say it. I'm not allowed to be mad or angry, because then I don't want to perpetuate this angry Black woman stereotype, even though I should have every right to be mad. Sometimes things piss me off, or I'm frustrated about whatever, but I always have to think about that. Whenever I come on hard with my staff, then like I'm the bad guy, but my white boss, he's just being a leader. He's just, holding the line. And so it's been hard. I mean, there's been times in my, current role where I feel like I have been treated different because I'm a Black woman, like that I'm not getting the respect that I deserve from my colleagues, or that there's unfair expectations. And so honestly, like, I wish I could say, it's 2023 and it's better, or it's easier, or there's no issues. But at least for me and my career so far, it continues to be an issue for other people. My Blackness is not an issue. It's other people's problem.
Ooh, that last speech, did y'all hear that? All right. Shanice, give us some.
Yeah, I think I would like to just echo that, like even the tone of like how I'm always having to watch my tone, and I can be, direct, but I'm like trying not to be too direct. But I have a colleague that, again, when I say it, it's, you have to watch your tone, or maybe it's how you say it, but then my colleague might say the exact same thing, and they're like, oh my gosh, like this is brand new information. I said, I just said the same thing, right? And so really navigating that has been different. I would also say in terms of intersectionality, how I show up for the students as well, right? Especially like my Black students, they tend to kind of put the Black students on you, because they're like, oh, yeah, you can do it. And of course, I know that there's a different relationship that I have with them, but I always think in the back of my mind, is that taking the work from you, having to actually go out and see, how do I advocate for these students that are different than me? Because I have to always try and advocate for students that look different than me. So how are you able to do that? So it's definitely a lot of mental gymnastics, but again, going back to that community and that kinship, using spaces like these to say like, hey, how did you navigate that? Or going back to those key players, like, hey, like, you know, I'm having this kind of issue or a challenge. How can you help me throughout this process? Whether that's advocating for my students that are Black, or whether that is watching my tone. So that's what I have to add on that.
Thank you so much. I think that's critical and important. And I think you all said a lot in terms about that, navigating that support system, you know, and also too, I think that mental gymnastics, right? That think twice before we do is exhausting. And that's why we want to come home and just sit on our couch and probably watch paint dry, you know what I mean? Or zone out to a show, and I do that when I get home. I just give me a TV show. I can not think about it because I don't need to rehash the whole day. Does anyone want to add to this one that hasn't already been said, or want to add to this particular question here?
Can add to it. I know for me with this here, I'm not just a Black woman, I'm a single mom. I was getting my doctorate. I was doing a whole lot, you know, in working in housing. So for a long time, I was doing it by myself. And, you know, with the job, you start to think, you know, well, it becomes very exhausting, because I'm like, I don't want people to think that I'm slacking. I don't want people to think that I'm not doing my part. But honestly, I was doing a lot. They would come to me for everything. And I'm like, I am not Superwoman. I cannot do it all. And I shouldn't have to feel like I need to do it all. And so for me, I'm very transparent about that. With this new job, I told the person, I said, look, I'm a single mom. If my daughter is sick, she's sick now, y'all. She's in this room. I'm at home. I have to leave. She comes first. And so I have to always think about, you know, all the roles that I play, because I'm not just, you know, one part of the role. I'm multiple things. And so I always think about that. I always have to think about how I say things, because they always say, you look mean or you look mad today. I'm like, but that's my face. If my coworker do it, y'all don't say nothing to her. You know, y'all want to talk to her about books and everything else, but I have to talk about real work today. You know, sometimes I just want to talk about a book or a TV show, you know, or close my door and be okay with it. But sometimes I don't get that luxury of doing it, because I might get called in the office, you know, with why you acting like that today? What's going on? Or something might be wrong. And so I did want to bring that up, because it's multiple facets that we play, and it's not just that one part of it.
That's it. Yeah. Kiana, you got something there?
Yes, because Dr. Dominique brought up something about that intersectionality and things that I wrote down besides being Black, being plus size, because, you know, your girl is a little thick over here. And so that comes with a layer of stuff, you know, of assumptions, some very presumed things, if you will. Having a direct communication style. I fix it for folks who need a little sugar on it, you know, but the balance of, I wrote down sharing how I move, sharing what my expectations are. So when we get to you want to bring me here, this is how I move. These are my expectations. What is that? So asking, what does support look like? How I move will move in this. How does that work in this culture? You know, is that going to be the fit? Because I don't have the time for the mental Olympics of this is what the package is, you know, so don't sell me a dream, because this is reality right here that you're getting. So how is that? What's that connection? Laying out those expectations and, you know, knowing what your no's are, you know, similar to what she had mentioned before, what Dominique had mentioned before, understanding that. And, you know, I also think about, because I always pause, because I know it's bias and everything. And so understanding, taking a breath, understanding where there may be some bias at play, or it's just experience that's not on your level. And so, you know, folks smart about what they smart about. And so just recognizing that they may be at a different place in the world, and I might need to balance that, or assign somebody else to deal with them.
So I think that's a great segue into the next question that we have for you all. I think Kiana set us up really good in talking about boundaries and things of that nature, but we're going to get into it as we're already started, especially with Dr. Simmons took us there too on that strong Black woman superpower syndrome. And so it's often described is often just used to describe Black women who feel obligated to help others, suppress their emotions, manifest strength, and resist appearing vulnerable, often leading to unrealistic expectations in the workplace. And how have you been able to set personal and professional boundaries in your role? How has this Black superwoman syndrome helped or harmed you, in that thought process? And I know that there might be some lingering things that folks want to say from the other question, if you can connect to this one. I thought this was a great transition for us in talking about that when we talked about intersectionality, but also too, that strong Black woman syndrome. I think it is an issue. It is a problem. And who wants to start us off?
I can kick us off.
Okay.
And then I'm sure folks will definitely add and color in as well. And so that Black superwoman syndrome is something that's definitely real. And I'm learning that in different seasons of my life, I need different things. And so when I was interviewing for this job, I wasn't asking the typical questions about XYZ. I was asking about the environment, the culture, and what my supervisor needed from me in order to ensure that I would be seen, not as a Black woman who's going to get work done, but for the value that I bring into this space as well. And so some of the things that I do to help with some of that boundary setting is talking to my supervisor about what I need. And I also hold to that I really think that in housing, at times our work happens in seasons. And so I try to really lean into whatever season that is. And so for us next week, we have move-in. So things are going. Right after this, I have a run of show meeting to go over with the team to ensure that we're ready. But as soon as move-in is over, I need to pour into my cup. So what space do I have to go figure out who is Paige outside of this space as well? Therapy has been very helpful as well. And something that I've really been leaning into as I just recently moved to the Chicagoland area, we're really big on how we define and create community for our students. What does that look like for us too? Who's pouring into my cup outside of work? And so I've been very intentional trying to get into other spaces, ensuring that I have someone who's fortifying me. I think iron sharpens irons. Who's pouring into my cup, even outside of this space, because I'm more than Paige, just professional. I have a host of other things that makes me this. And so I'm excited to engage in what that looks like in a different season, because also I recognize as the seasons change, you need different things. So things that worked for me in my last season may not be working in this season. And so I have to be intentional on creating that time now.
Thank you so much. And Nicole, I'm a good friend to call on you.
When I first got to my current institution, everything seemed to be going pretty smoothly and I was all good. But then COVID happened and we had a lot of staffing issues with our resident assistants. And so initially, I was that person that was like very there for the students and I put a lot of time and energy into them. These last couple of years took a lot out of me. And now I'm realizing just this year, like, let me take a step back. I know what I'm doing. They need to figure out their stuff. It's not all on me. But I think a lot of what, some of what Paige was talking about of like, what can I do outside of work to really decompress? I'm in the middle of planning a wedding, so that is where my other attention is. When I get off of work, I'm like, I'm not thinking about this place, like whatever, I'll figure it out later. Let's look at what else is going on. So that is also helpful to have those other hobbies, to have those other events and life things happening outside of this, because we are people first and foremost. Like, we are not just these jobs.
Yes.
Can I add on to that? So transparency moment throughout this job. And of course, we know housing and residence life can be very hectic. And I started getting very high blood pressure to the point where they're like, ma'am, you are too small to be having your blood pressure this high, right? And I remember bringing it up and it was very downplayed. And so for me, I was like, you know what? There are certain hills that I'm going to die on and other hills that I'm not going to die on, again, for that boundaries portion, right? So like, if you want to have this conversation with me right now, I just cannot, because I know that this is going to overstep a boundary that I don't want to be in, and that can put me in a harmful place. And so figuring out what hills to die on that day to really separate myself. And again, those extracurricular activities can always be amazing. So we can be in like spaces where it's sorority life or planning a wedding or just being in a nonprofit or whatever the case is, to kind of bring it back to say, this is who I am. So definitely Wet Hills, but those extracurricular activities.
Thank you so much. Does anyone want to add to this question here?
The only thing I probably add is for this, not being scared to say no, and not being scared to ask for help. So that's something that's very hard for me, especially when you don't want to look like you don't know how to, you don't want help or whatever, but I ask for help now, like, just help me if you can, not saying I say no. If I can't do it, I'm just not going to do it. And also in housing, I've learned we have to set the boundaries and put certain procedures in place to provide the space and also even just time away. So we have a structure, we have our on-call system. While I'm getting called, somebody else is on call. So really following those protocols. And so I've been really trying my best to set protocols in place to help us, think about ourselves. And also when you off. My dissertation, y'all, was on entry-level housing professionals. So looking at job satisfaction when it comes to burnout. So really figuring out those, boundaries that we need to put in place to help with burnout. So, if you can do or whatever it looks like, if you live in another building, that's fine. You still on campus, but now they get a separation from the residence hall. So really putting those practices into place will help them with that. So sometimes when people are scared to kind of ask for the help or don't want to seem like, they can't do it, we're kind of helping push that, forward too from our end, because we are in leadership and we can do that, if we can, with the politics. But if you can do it, try to look at the best practices too. So I do that as well.
Thank you so much. We had a question that was in there, and I thought that question was really good because we talked about it a little bit in terms of, how do we do that? Nicole talked about planning a wedding after work and doing other things, and so did Kiana. But we had a good question there. I said, what are some ways that you all try to unwind after a day or a moment of being labeled as a Black woman by verbally or unsaid vibes? And so what are some ways that we kind of navigate some of that there? Who wants to kick us off?
I'm happy to jump in. One of the ways I was thinking about two responses. One, if it happens like in the moment, I'm thankful that there's another Black woman on my leadership team. And so I feel like there's been times where I've just gone to her office. Like, I just need a minute to see somebody else that looks like me, that gets what I'm feeling, and can kind of hold that space for me. And so I think it's come up multiple times, but I think this communal nature of Black women and us not seeing each other as competition, but it's sisters, and to be able to support one another. So that's what I would do in the moment. And then I think outside of the work, for me, it's just listening to music, a podcast, sometimes just reading things that I just like to do, kind of remind me of that.
I'll weigh in because we gonna definitely have a meeting after the meeting, okay? And regroup what happened, who did what, when, and where, and then what's our game plan for our next. And that is key. I think for me, I try to have stock of what are those things that are always going to reaffirm me, and that gives me some of that. And it may be, purpose as partners. So understanding who my partners are. And sometimes it may mean that, no, girl, you was wrong. And so, let me just talk about it though. Let me just have my moment. And then you can tell me it was wrong and then reaffirm what I need to do to go back in and do better, because I think that we get caught up in, it is other people's privilege to be able to come to work and show up as their whole selves. But for whatever reason, we segment who we are, right? And then we get stuck in these spaces when this happens because we remove pieces of our suit, right? It came with a whole ensemble. Where's the whole ensemble? And so because other people are definitely going to do that. And so we need to find what's going to reaffirm you so that you can show up and do what it is you need to do. And that's going to definitely, like everyone has said, fill you back up.
Definitely drop some gems there. All right. Who else wants to tap in?
I'll do so outside of like working on my dissertation or being in sorority life, I'm the person that has the raunchy playlist after work. So I'm gonna have definitely like all of the vibes. Nuckity Buck will be on full blast. I want everybody to know when I'm leaving the parking lot, they know what it is, right? And so, so by the time I get home, I'm like, whoo, all right, I feel great, right? And then it's on to the next cup. So that's definitely outside of, me doing all that other stuff, definitely like my music, and we're just gonna listen to it all by the time we get home to decompartmentalize.
Raunchy playlist. I love it. Make sure folks know you're leaving our office, and then they have boom, 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 boom. Yes, I love it. Absolutely. Hit that bass. Get that bass going. Definitely. Anyone wants to also add to this one there? We do have another question that was also pretty good in the chat too, is talk about, has there been a time, and this kind of changes gears just a little bit there for us, but has it been a time anyone was denied an opportunity because of our race or gender? And if yes, what did you do? And which leadership theory do you use in your current position? Again, specific. Let you all think about that just for a second.
I'll speak to the theory, since, thinking about this is a new role. And so I have a new team coming into the role. I had to hire most of my key positions not long after getting here. My assistant director and one of our professional staff, our residence hall director. And what immediately was in my bag of tricks is looking at situational leadership model. And so identifying how to, as I'm learning them, those moments where I'm switching between, so this is a coaching day today. Okay, here we go. To where I'm delegating, and as I am learning and kind of identifying their strengths, and how I'm helping build the team, as we are forming, and especially thinking about they also have direct reports. And so like one of my RDs, like he is fresh, minted, just fresh out of grad school. And so like, yeah, we moving into the woes of, I'm an adult. Yep. And you got adult responsibilities, and what that looks like with also balancing, yes, you're coming into a first year position where your grad is a second year, and so that can be intimidating. And so having those coaching sessions with him, and you kind of using that, you just inertly just kind of do and kind of plug in. But that's the one that's really been fresh for me most recently.
Thank you. And definitely situational leadership. I love it. Anyone tap in? I'm going to call on you. So one of the things I wanted to look at is I look at supervision, leadership, and management as three hats that I wear during the time. And I think that's also something that looks at too, was when we are in these roles, we're supervising, we're managing, and we're leading teams, right? And so we have to put on those hats during those different times. And so that's kind of how I approach it, with that particular part. I know the first part of the question looks at, have you ever been denied an opportunity because of your race and gender? And so I don't know if anyone wants to kind of specifically speak to some of that. I've had that experience in the past, and I believe that is one of the reasons why I think it was my gender is what denied me a position based on the leadership of the department head. And that's what I think was one of the ones that kind of did that there for me. And what I did was I found another job.
I'll echo that. And so while an opportunity I wasn't necessarily denied an opportunity, the actions of the leadership team shared and indicated to me that they did not value women, in particular Black women, in that organization in that way. And so what I did is I called attention to it for sure. I would document, I would challenge, right? And they were aware, they're like, oh, that's a gap. We didn't realize that we're missing that. But also I saw other opportunities. And so I did the same thing. I saw it, I recognized, and I left.
Yeah, pretty much same. Now, I didn't do with race and gender, but pregnancy. So there right there was a thing for me back at an institution where I noticed that I was getting just treated a little bit different, and it was very hard to manage. And I did challenge, but I also found me another job and I moved on, And so people always ask me about that gap, you don't have to ask me about the gap, because for one, if I didn't want to be there, I just didn't want to be there. But I got, I just got mine is more pregnancy related. And so I don't even know if y'all have thought about, if y'all probably experienced something like that either, but being pregnant and to probably take off from housing for a few months, because it is a thing at some places.
And I also don't think we foster an environment that supports women, supports folks who have families, right? We're opening on Saturdays, we're late night programming, and I really don't know if we have, did that. I think we tried our best at another institution I was at, until where some of our events were also family friendly, and the message went out, please bring your kids, bring your family. This is a movie on the lawn. There's enough for that. So how do we also make that as a part of that, we're within housing? And I think that, it's not necessarily the great environment that supports folks with families. And I don't have a family, and as somebody who's leading a department and has, been a part, of that, people who have started to have small children, and we need to do better. We do need to do better. We do. I know that we are trying our best to stop at 50, so we got about 6 minutes. And I know I wanted to move on in terms of giving a little bit, looking at this hot topic question here we have. Trying our best to mirror the view, right? Take a little bit to support the view. What's the biggest challenge in residence life at the moment? And what is your answer to this particular challenge? And I wanted to hit on that because I heard some folks talk about this COVID. I don't know, and how we have recovered from COVID. How do we recover from COVID? How do we move from it? Are we still in COVID? Is it happening? Are we still isolating folks? People get this COVID and the students don't want to live with the roommate. And I said, well, the person had flu last month, but you stayed. So I'm trying to figure out the difference. And so just, what is the biggest challenge in residence life at the moment, and how do we answer that? And what are some things how do we get past that, And I'm going to have us start off with Nicole.
I think definitely COVID is very much still here. We have had a new number of cases popping up in the last 2 weeks. But aside from that, I think the students that are going to be incoming in the next year or so and that are already here, they obviously were the Zoom student population. So now they aren't at home, they're with other people. How are they getting out of their room? How are they interacting with others? I think uniquely to, maybe not uniquely, but something that we've noticed on our campus is having more students on the spectrum. So how are we navigating their experience on campus? Their roommates, how are they getting to class? How are they interacting with other people? It is obviously an ongoing conversation within housing that has been there for as long as housing has been a thing. But of course, now after COVID, it's something that we've definitely got to rethink how we approach. And I think it's still going to be an ongoing challenge for quite some time, because it's just something that, we weren't thinking of, we weren't totally prepared for. It's different across all types of campuses and housing opportunities. So I think that's a huge challenge right now. And truthfully, I don't have an answer to it. But I think being as open-minded as we can and really doing that deeper thinking into what we can do to help our students is ultimately where we're headed.
Well, I don't know if it's as unique, but in Texas, we passed the Senate bill law outlining diversity, equity, and inclusion. It was Senate Bill 17. And so that is a unique challenge that we are having to face, because DEI offices are being removed. DEI VPs and directors are either getting fired or displaced. And so a big challenge that even for me, or me having to work with some of my student staff members, is programming looks completely different. And although they say, it just has to be changed, it truly is not just a change. It's we're trying to get rid of it in a different way. And so, and challenge for me is, how do I still advocate for my students that deal with intersectionality in many different facets, but also making sure that we are abiding by the laws that are set, because we also don't want to lose our jobs, whether that's full-time or student. And so really having to, again, just lean on different offices in different, places around Texas, or whether that's Florida, seeing other people's models. But I know that's a big thing, especially for Texas, is having to navigate that Senate bill specifically.
I'll quickly add some challenges that I'm thinking about. Staff retention and success for the field. COVID has really exacerbated what our folks, what they've had to do. And so how are we retaining folks? How are we thinking and rethinking and reimagining some of our practices and policies and procedures to keep folks around? Something else that's on top of my mind is the enrollment cliff that is coming. We are building all of these facilities for students, and what happens when there are less bodies around. And then today I read an article about they call them Gen P. And so students are coming in saying that they are underengaged because the pandemic interrupted their social experiences, and they are reporting higher rates of what did they say, like mental health needs. And so what does that mean directly for our work? And so those are probably the top 3 things that I'm thinking about for Res Life. Do I have an answer? No, but I'm confident that the people on this call, we're gonna solve all the problems in the world. So maybe one day, and then they'll pay us for it too.
I'm gonna just give it to God. I'm gonna give it to God and just hope for the best. Okay. Things that popped in my mind thinking about this question quickly that I wrote down so I won't forget. Preparedness when it comes to the increase of, so for example, GSU is a minority servant institution, and we are emerging as HSI. And so in having conversations with colleagues in the field, the struggle of, yes, we are expanding, we are diversifying our student populations, but we are also not putting the extra support mechanisms in place. If a student's parents the English is not their first language, then how will we make sure that the parents are best supporting the students? Because we have not hired an interpreter on the team. So what happened? So what are they supposed to do when it comes time for them to come to orientation, or to get this important paperwork signed, or trying to explain the process, that we're leaving that onus on the student to do that? Or if that is not the student's first language, and this is their first time, because thinking about our international students, that they've made the checklist, yes, to be here, but what's next? So I think that is a concern. And so what does that look like with them living on campus, and how are we have some different magic sometimes, and so some different things that we can do, unfortunately, to pick up the slack from other functional areas of the university. And so that falls on us, right? And so not fair, but it's what it is, and we care about our student success. The other thing that I had put down was the retention and readiness. Like we had talked about, it's a different breed, but they want to be here. And so the readiness and understanding, we may need to shift what the readiness looks like and how we support the onboarding of our new professionals, because you're right. The last 3 years, they had a different type of graduate experience. They had a different type of sunsetting of their undergraduate experience when they transitioned into grad school, and they didn't get the role modeling, because a lot of us got to see by doing as student leaders. That seed got planted, we got to see hall directors in action and what they did, and being at programs and all of those things. We also got to see the bad side of it, of the bad hours, and the long nights and those kind of things. So we are at this fork in the road of, we moving the old guard out the way, but we're keeping the same old vision. And so, like, how do we, what is the new? And so what is going to be that good balance? And a lot of that falls on us, because we know we're Park Place. And so everybody is want to be our friend and come to us. And so, like, how do we balance that?
Absolutely. I'm supposed to be moderating this. I'm in this chat, y'all. Like I'm a participant. So absolutely. And I know that we got, 8 minutes, but I wanted to see if there's any final words from our panelists who haven't necessarily answered particularly this question here. This is the first and last time they're gonna have me moderate. They can say you in the chat, I'm over here highlighting and everything. And so I want to give I appreciate y'all taking the initiative to come off mute. But if there's anything y'all want to add to this question, because I want to go ahead and turn it over to be able to have some opportunities to make some announcements as well for our leaderships for this team here.
The only thing I add, and Paige hit on it about the retention of staff and stuff, but I would either go a step before that of the recruitment. We've seen that you're not seeing the traditional people wanting kind of these hall director roles that were RAs or even want to be hall directors. And so I think if housing and res life sees a future at institutions, I think we have to be thinking creatively and differently about how do we hire and then retain quality staff. And I think some of that is that we got to be more flexible. We need to stop burning people out. Less needs to be more. We shouldn't be doing the same things that we did 20 years ago when I was in college. Some things I think we got to be like Elsa and let it go. And so I just think those are things that we really got to focus on if we really want to, continue to improve and make housing a quality experience on our campuses.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think when you had mentioned that, I talked about how does remote work look like for housing and residence life folks, right? How does that look like for folks? I think the other part too is if we have CAP folks CAPS, counseling and psychiatric services who are teleworking, remoting, we know this, we've seen all the commercials for better health. You can do it over Zoom and things of that nature. What do we need to do in residence life? We can do these health and safety checks virtually, right? Didn't we do that during COVID? Because we wanted to make sure nobody had anybody extra in the room or any extra animals in your space or anything else you try to do in there. You know what I mean? And so we have to think creatively about how we're going to approach, this particular part. How do we come out of COVID? But I also think that we have had a great time with our panelists. I know that there is some opportunities to do some announcements and things of that nature, but I think that the folks on this call would love to have contact information for our lovely panelists to be able to contact them. I know I've gotten some direct messages and things of that nature, and I'm going to put my email in the chat just in case somebody wants to talk in terms of a one-on-one basis, especially around supervision, leadership, and management. We can talk about, some of those things as well. I'm going to turn this back over to Deanna, Alexis.
Hey. First and foremost, thank y'all so much again for making the time. Dr. Holmes, we enjoyed it. You will be asked back. We did not feel any type of way about you task hopping, AKA multitasking, because you was doing the thing. So let me make sure to affirm you in that. Shanice, Dr. Simmons, Dr. Kakari, Paige, Nicole, Kiana, y'all. Thank you for coming through from the first time to the second time. I got that song the second time around in my head. What I did was drop a few things in the chat for folks to kind of carry those links with them with how to stay connected with all of the networks, right? So not just Black Professionals Network and the Women in Housing Network, but our other friends that are doing their thing. So feel free to follow Akuhoai's calendar, share it out with your teams. And regarding the Women in Housing Network specifically, if you have questions or concerns, you can email us right here. Make sure I put it in. There you go. So if you're like, what's happening? How do I get engaged? That's that. And what I'm going to do for the sake of time is pass the baton over to our friends over in Black Professionals Network in case there are any additional updates. And Michelle, if there's anything else you want to share on behalf of the Women in Housing Network, I feel like we're still working with 3 strong good minutes. So Alexis, whenever you're ready, you can take it over.
Yeah, so I will actually be doing our announcements.
TK, my bad, TK.
Okay, you're good, no worries. So hi everyone, my name is Teresa McKyer, or TK, and I'm the Assistant Director at UNC Greensboro, and I serve as the 2023 Chair for the Black Professionals Network. So upcoming some announcements for us. So we are doing a Black first, I want to thank the panelists. That was amazing. Some serious gems. I loved everything. Like I was getting fed and it was amazing. So thank y'all so much for this. We can't thank you enough for being a part of this and having our opportunity to be a part of it as well.
So September 28th, at 3 p.m., we are doing a Black Men in Housing panel as well this month. So we were honored to be able to do one for the women, and then we're going to do another one with Black men as a part 2 as well. So we'll be dropping that link in the chat. So if you're interested, please join for that. Then we'll be having we're participating in the Multicultural Institute on Tuesday, October 24th and Wednesday, October 25th. So all of the networks will kind of be there, and we are participating. We'll be doing either an article or podcast. So we're super, super excited for that. And then the last thing that we have is our Connection Hub. So if you are interested in connecting with the Black Professionals Network, getting on our listservs, with our newsletter, and getting other events that we're doing, please connect with us, and the hub is listed there to be able to get all of that information. Thank you all again so much for your time and participation. We are so excited. Thank you, thank you, thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Y'all are so smart. I took so many copious notes. I'm full. I have been filled today. Thank you.
Yes, I was in this chat, in this direct messages. Y'all were direct DM in the me, and I'm trying to respond, but
You did an amazing job, because I know you was getting it left and right. I was doing my best to filter for y'all. It's a lot of questions we did not get to based on things that they presented, but please believe we copied and pasted. So we have that information archived. So for the meeting after the meeting conversations, the legit podcast, everybody needs to subscribe to and check out the meeting after the meeting content, grab it. I feel like it's a lot of great things to keep the conversation going and the actions for those that are like, all right, we talking, how we gonna shake it up and what we're gonna do about it. But toward the end, I feel like that's a session in and of itself. Just talking about how we remain relevant and remind individuals that we are that, like a strong pillar within our institutions. So hopefully we can capture some of those notes as well to carry over. But I love the attentiveness, everybody. Again, to Dr. Holmes' point, the chat was chatting, and I loved it. So hopefully whatever y'all came to get, y'all got it. But I was looking forward to this for a very, very long time, and it did not disappoint. I'm going into my kiddo cheer practice with all the joy in the world, in the overflow, as LaFarron would say. My cup is in the overflow. So I greatly appreciate y'all making the time to keep pouring into us and even being vulnerable about some of those real challenges faced.
Yep. Listen, the marketing on this had me register twice because I didn't know if I did it the first time. So I was like, whoa, because it was so good. Everywhere I looked, I saw this thing, and then my little picture looking like Stacey Abrams at the bottom of that flyer.
I'm not on mute.
The way I just hollered, I'm glad I was on mute.
All right, y'all, I got to go get some lunch here. Love you,
right.
sending all you all good loves. All right.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, family.